Hello everyone. This is the second video for chapter 17 and this is learning objective number 2. So I'm going to continue with chapter 17 now. Let me see. Sharing just a moment. Share my screen going here. There we go. Okay, so this is learning objective 2 and it's explain the AIDA model. And this AIDA model is how marketing communication works. And it's a series of mental stages. So it's basically 4 steps, 4 mental steps that people go through before they actually buy or take some other action. So you can see here, this is, there's 4 steps here: awareness, interest, desire, and action. And there's customer responses. This is what the customer does. At the beginning, they think, and then they move to feeling some sort of way about something, and then hopefully they move to take some sort of action. So if we look at each stage, awareness, it starts with awareness, and then awareness will ultimately lead to interest, hopefully. Interest, once they get interested in the product, that'll lead to desire. And once they desire the product, that'll lead to action to purchase the product. So they move from thinking about the product to feeling something for the product and then actually doing something about that. And in marketing, we are all about getting them to do something, which is actually purchase, right? So at each stage, they decide whether to take the next step. And just as a note, they don't have to go in this order. They might desire something and they don't know enough about it, so they go do some research, right? They might desire it and then they might go do some research about it, and then they might become interested in a certain brand, and then they might move to action. So they could take these steps in not a linear format. They can jump around here. So, for example, an impulse purchase, when you're at the checkout counter in the grocery store, you feel hungry, you grab the bag of chips, and then after you eat them in the car on the way home, you think, well, that might not have been a great healthy choice for me, right? Or you think about, whatever it is you bought. So they can go in different orders there. So let's talk about each stage. In the awareness stage, hopefully the consumer knows the brand when the name is presented to them. And they may or may not know the brand. Hopefully they do. And then, remember when we talked about the 3 circles and how we really want our brand to be in that evoked set, the one that comes to mind when people think about a product of this nature? So if you have this really highest level of awareness, then you have what we call top of mind awareness, where the person is aware of a specific brand name when they're asked about a product or service. So that's, probably that evoked set that we talked about before. How do I build top of mind awareness? Well, we build that by having memorable names, repeated exposure of the name to the customers through advertising, locations, sponsorships, memorable symbols. For example, if you follow my little arrow over here, and you see these 3 circles here, what do you immediately think about? Hopefully you think about Disney, right? So that is one of the most memorable symbols in the world. And that's why branding is so very important. Um, Having something memorable, having memorable logos, taglines, even colors, um, those types of things. I think I've mentioned to y'all before that with my bakery, I chose like an oval logo. It was brown with some Tiffany blue uh, words and a little, cake on there. But it's a very unique logo. And I would run into people that might not know the name Annie's. If you ask them about Annie's Bakery, they might not know the name Annie's, but the minute they saw the logo, they knew who we were. So, it kind of helped to build that brand awareness because the logo itself was so unique. And then ultimately, that the Annie's recognition followed uh, as that logo got more and more popular in the industry with my target segment. So this idea of creating top of mind awareness is critical. The more when they're in this awareness stage, the more they're aware of your brand, the more likely it is that they're going to buy from you, right? So awareness is very important. And obviously, one of marketing's biggest jobs is to create that brand awareness. Then they move to interest. So after the customer's aware of the brand, then our next job, first we got to make them aware. Then our next job is to get them interested. So then we have to persuade them that this is something worth their time to investigate. And competition makes this more difficult. If you have a lot of competition, um, then it's harder for you to persuade them to investigate your product. So make them aware. Then you've got to persuade them that your product is worth investigating. After you've piqued their interest, now your IMC messages have to move from I like it to I want it. Now you're trying to get them to want it. So your messages might change a little bit, right? And then from there, your ultimate goal is to get them to actually search for it and purchase it. So here, these are your call to action type buttons, click here to purchase or buy now, those kinds of things you'll see. So the IMC message, depending on what stage of the AIDA model the customer is in, the message will change. The first message is about making them aware that this product and company even exist. The next message is to get them interested in the product. What benefits does it bring to them? Why should they be interested in it? And then here's why you need it, right? This is going to make your life better. This is going to do whatever for you. Going from an interest phase to an I want it or I need it phase, and then action getting them to actually click. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention here is that it's not as straightforward as it sounds. Because if you think about a product that you've bought, maybe a new product, think of something that you have only, bought once, and maybe it was a kind of a larger purchase. Chances are that you didn't buy it the first time you heard about it. And you probably had to be exposed to it several times before you even remembered the brand or remembered the product. So this is what we call a lagged effect. And people don't just hop through these 4 stages. It usually takes quite a few exposures to a campaign before the customer really fully processes the message. And this aspect of lag and multiple required interactions makes measuring how effective our campaign is difficult, because it may seem like the campaign's not effective for a while, but then eventually it will be effective. It's just that the customer has to see things multiple times. It reminds me of, sometimes when I'm teaching something, I'll say it several times or I'll repeat it over a course of a few weeks. Like a minute ago, I talked to you about remembering the concept of the evoked response and the 3 circles, right? I talked about that again. I've talked about it several times this semester. And I've done that on purpose because the first time you heard it, it was new to you. The second time you heard it, you're like, oh, yeah, I've heard that before. And hopefully, this time when you heard it, you went, I know exactly what she's talking about. And that's exactly how the customer marketing messages happen as well. All right, I'm going to stop this video and I will produce the next video, which will be the 3rd learning objective about various communication channels.